on. I just knocked him on my camera. I'm picking it up. Sorry about that.
Hi my lovelies, and welcome back to my channel. So recently I asked you guys on my community tab what you guys would want to see for a 20,000 subscriber special, which is insane to even say out loud. As I'm filming this, we're actually like 20-ish or less away from hitting that milestone. Just thank you guys so much in advance for your continued support. I definitely plan on doing more of a special for you guys as, you know, a thank you. But you guys really wanted another ranking video, and I don't know why I haven't done one for a while. I mean, I feel like sometimes I get so caught up in making every video just a well thought out and researched niche video essay.
You know, what can I say? That's kind of my brand.
My ranking videos, though, have been some of my most viewed videos. So I gave myself, you know, a much needed break this past week and asked you guys for your overrated character hot takes on the community tab, and oh boy, you guys sure delivered. And let me just say, there was a lot that I couldn't include in this video. Like, it was either because I didn't know the media or didn't remember enough from watching it in the past to have a valid opinion on it, in my opinion. So if your submissions didn't make the video, I really try my best to include a lot of different things from a lot of different medias. But without further ado, let's go over our tiers so we can move on to the interesting part of the video. To start off, we have overrated, you know, self-explanatory. The character's overrated, and I agree with you. Then we have you just hate them. This is for characters where they're not really overrated. I feel like maybe you just don't like them, which is of course valid in itself, but this is for characters that maybe don't fit the overrated category. Then we have they serve their purpose. This is for characters maybe I'm neutral about, but they serve their purpose in the story, so I don't really think they're overrated and I don't really hate them, and I feel like they have their place in the story or like in the media. Then we have I love them but understandable. This is for characters I do like, but I also can consider them a little overrated even though I am a fan, you know. Then we have disagree. This is for characters I flat out disagree with, and I probably will tell you why. So starting off strong, we have Rainbow Dash. Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. I love Rainbow Dash, but I feel like, I mean, even if you hate her, we have to acknowledge her design is insanely cool, but I know she can be pretty blunt and too full of herself, and I think that's why a lot of people don't like her. Kind of separate tangent, but this honestly reminded me of something I'm pretty passionate about. One thing I feel like generally most My Little Pony fans can agree on is how the hell is she loyalty and Applejack honesty? I know damn well Rainbow Dash would easily sell out her friends for, I don't know, like a sandwich if she got the chance. And also Applejack literally got her cutie mark by being loyal to her family. Now, obviously you do not have to be in your element all of the time, but it's a lot, you know? I don't think Rainbow Dash has lied a day in her life, and I feel like, you know, her element isn't really relevant to her character unless there's an episode centered on it. Like, I don't know. This is kind of a hard one, not gonna lie, because I feel like she could fit into several of these tiers, but I think I'm just gonna settle for I love them but understandable, because ultimately I love Rainbow Dash. Next we have the Sun Moon animatronic from Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach. No. I'm not gonna let this slander slide today. I actually feel like the, you know, Moon Sun was one of the coolest like character designs in a hot minute. I mean, especially for the FNAF franchise, it felt so like fresh. I don't know if that even makes sense, but I feel like the hype is understandable for this character more so than others. I was playing that part of Security Breach at my friend's house, and I think this is when the game was pretty heavily bugged still, and I just remember I was trapped and the moon was like dancing like right where I was and I couldn't get out. But yeah, this is gonna have to go in flat out I disagree. But if we were talking about Security Breach as a game being kinda overrated,
that's another story.
Also, the voice acting for these characters, or character, I don't know if I should consider them one or two, is insanely cool and just like ties it all together. Next we have Topher Bus. Oh boy, am I glad you said this, because I've been wanting to talk about it for a hot minute. What is the appeal of Topher Bus? Now, it started off slowly with a lot of people, just appreciating the funny moments he had within the new season, which I heavily agree with. But I just wanted to get it out of the way that it's pretty understandable why he stood out, considering the state, that the show is in. Plus, his voice actor is just so good. Like, even if you don't like Topher, his delivery is great and fits the character perfectly. But then, it just got, like, kind of confusing, weird even, because why is he suddenly the new baby girl of the fandom? Like, isn't he supposed to be unlikable? Like, the whole gag is that he's trying too hard not to be like his clone father when he clearly is. Also, I'm kind of glad that we're bringing up Toph-Abe, because how is Toph-Abe a more popular ship than Calopatra? Why? Like, I try to be nice, but I'm really just a hater to my core with this one. It isn't even like it's an enjoyable ship either. Like, I know that might hurt to hear, but come on, guys. JFK and Abe are right there.
Hey, we make a really good duo of bros who will remain friends for the rest of our lives!
Topher literally blackmails Abe for no reason. The reason is that he likes Joan, but there is no foreshadowing of this whatsoever. And then JFK just smashes his phone with his ass. How am I supposed to move on? Do I have to be the one to break it to you that Topher isn't doing it because he likes Abe? He's blackmailing him because he's miserable and nobody likes him.
Since we're all confessing stuff, I'm done being nice. This is how I really feel. Women shouldn't wear...
Shut up, Topher!
In all seriousness, ship whatever you want. Like, it's not hurting anybody. I just had to go on a tangent. Like, it's been annoying me for too long. I can't be quiet anymore. I will gladly put him in Overrated at this point. I really can't take it anymore. And speaking of Clone High, next is JFK, which I have to at least partially agree with. I think that especially in season 1, JFK has a ton of hilarious moments, and I definitely enjoy his character. However, I can name just like several other characters I enjoy all around more than I enjoy him. Also, personal pet peeve, whenever you look up Clone High anything, it seems like only JFK like comes up, and it really pisses me off. I could type in Clone High Joan of Arc and his silly ass will just sneak his way into my search results. Like, I don't want him. But yeah, hot take, Cleo and Gandhi are funnier to me actually than he is. Heavy on Cleo. People do not give her the credit she deserves. Like, Krista Miller has one of the best deliveries I've ever heard for like a character. Like, it makes everything so much funnier. Like, sometimes it's not even the words that are coming out of her mouth in season 1, it's like the delivery that fully sells it for me. Also, that is no shade to the voice actress for Cleo in season 2. I was just specifically talking about season 1 Cleo, and because that's where the hype of this start. We have to talk about the root of the cause. So yeah, I absolutely think it's fair to say the hype is a little much sometimes when it comes to JFK, and I especially dislike him after this past season, but that's a conversation for another day, which I actually did have on another day. I think I'm just gonna put him in Overrated just because I, at the present moment, am not happy with him. Moving on, we have Miguel O'Hara from the new Spider-Verse movie.
Some of y'all about to be real mad at me, but it must be said.
I 100% agree. I actually didn't see this movie the moment it came out, so for context, I had seen a lot of thirst edits or just edits of him in general online prior to when I watched the movie. So like, it was out of context. So you can just kind of imagine my utter shock when I like went to watch the movie and I saw what he actually does and like says to Miles in the movie. Jaw was on the floor. So absolutely, I do think he's overrated. In fact, I just can't stand him. I feel like this is the perfect example of like, pretty privilege is just so real. I feel like it's a little hard to say like, oh, he has no takeaways like outside of this situation because we're left on a cliffhanger and there's gonna be another movie and the story is kind of left unfinished in that sense. I can't really say there's anything with his character right now that makes me like him at all. For that reason, I absolutely agree. Could change later. Of course, I will give him the benefit of the doubt as the story plays out in the future movie. The continuation as the story will play out in the next film. I don't know why I worded that so bit weird. Next we have Jade from Victorious. Now, as a kid, I've said this before on this channel, I was a total iCarly kid. I watched Victorious maybe a handful of times, like if it was just happened to be on Nickelodeon, but I never went out of my way to watch it, if that makes sense. I've noticed a pattern though of like which characters tend to be most popular and overhyped. Everyone seems to hate Tori is something I've gathered, just like everyone seems to hate Carly for only the fact that she's the main character. So this is my opinion as someone who's not as versed in the show, so I would love to hear your takes in the comments, but I'm going to agree that she's at least a tad bit overrated, because in my time watching this show briefly as a kid, I remember liking characters like Trina, and I always see clips of her online that are hilarious to me, but no one really seems to talk about her. I feel like Jade is very similar to a character like Sam from iCarly, not having the best home life, and the fact that they come off as assholes with their, you know, mean demeanors. But Jade is definitely more mean to her friends than Sam would ever be, like from what I can remember. That's kind of what I've gathered from the people that don't like Jade, and I feel like that's pretty understandable. There's also some drama between like Jade, Beck I think is his name, and Tori, and I don't remember any of that because I didn't watch it enough to know all of it. It's such a hard one to rank. I'm debating putting it on You Just Hate Them, but like at the very... It's like in the middle of Overrated and You Just Hate Them, because I could see either side. I'm gonna put her in You Just Hate Them for now. I might change it in a minute. I'm feeling a bit indecisive for some reason. But next we have Draculaura from Monster High, and yeah, I won't even lie to you. I absolutely love Draculaura, but even I can attest to this. And can I just say the way her popularity has caused her doll's prices to like skyrocket, I think worse out of like any of the other characters, is such a frustrating thing. But when I rewatched the movies for the first time, since I was a kid, her personality kind of caught me off guard. Do you guys remember that whole thing, and I think it's Ghoul's Rule, where Draculaura is trying to set Claudine up with a date, but Claudine has made it very clear that she's just uncomfortable with the idea. That just pissed me off so much. It's like, maybe let's
Respect people's boundaries.
I think she's sweet and she obviously cares deeply for her friends, but I can also see how she could come off as a bit annoying with her sometimes like dramatic moments. And while I love her design, there's absolutely a lot of characters I prefer over her. Twyla or Gulia, to name a few off the top of my head. So for that, I'm gonna put her in I love them, but understandable. The whole time I'm talking about this, I also just have this picture of comic book Draculaura fan in my comments telling me to shut up. I'm not scared of you. On the topic of Monster High, and more specifically Draculaura, next we have Elissabat. About a year ago when I rewatched the Monster High movies, I said Fright's camera action was my new favorite. But I actually didn't talk about my thoughts on Elissabat, though, in that video. I feel like her character is pretty irrelevant to this movie. I mean, they are searching for Veronica Von Vamp, and it's at the center of the plot. But once it's unveiled that it's Elissabat, it's like exactly what we'd expect. So her doll, like, it really is just purple Draculaura, like, and that's why it's so expensive. And just because she is a purple Draculaura doesn't mean that I don't think her design is cool as hell. Like, I wish her doll wasn't so expensive. Last year, actually, I wanted to buy it. Like, I had purple hair, and I was actually Elissabat for Halloween, but I didn't have the doll, which would have 100% made my costume just, like, 10 times cuter. Why am I debating this now that I'm sitting down to rank it? Like, I feel like even though this kind of contradicts what I just said, I'm gonna put her in they serve their purpose, because I think ultimately she does. Even if she's a little absent in her own movie, she still is the center of her movie. I don't know if that even makes sense. Next, we have Hello Kitty. Okay, this is an interesting one and gives me the perfect opportunity to go on a semi-related rant. As a person, a sanrio collector, I would say somewhat, I have to say lately it's been something that I really don't enjoy anymore. Like, if I'm thrifting and I come across something Hello Kitty, it is usually the only time I buy anything anymore. Or I mean sanrio in general. That's like a rare occasion with the, you know, surgence of Depop resellers existing. But a lot of the new Hello Kitty merchandise is honestly pretty ugly to me, and I'll see accounts post like run to Five Below, run to Marshall's. But then, are you buying that stuff because it's Hello Kitty, or are you buying it because it's genuinely cute? You need to be real with yourself. On the occasion that I even think the merchandise is cute though, and go specifically to the places I just mentioned, they never even have the items anyway. Oh, another one is CVS. The amount of times I've gone to CVS because they have like the holiday, I don't remember what they're called, like, why do I want to say steppers? They have certain holiday plushes they have there that I think they move, and they have like blankets and pajama pants. Never in my life have I gone into CVS and actually found even a display. But these places, they never have the items anyway, so collecting Hello Kitty stuff has become such a waste of money and time for me that I essentially gave up on it, honestly, almost completely. I still love Hello Kitty, don't get me wrong. In fact, I actually just thrifted a giant Hello Kitty Squishmallow of her like last week. But I think it's fair to say she's an overrated character. Personally, Pom Pom Purin is my favorite Sanrio character, and I feel like he doesn't get nearly enough love. Every year for that like Sanrio Character of the Year voting thingy, Cinnamoroll always wins over him. I've seen it happen like twice in a row now.
Stop the count.
There's also like Choco Cat, who's barely on any merchandise ever, and oh my god, Usahana, so underrated. Like literally zero merchandise of her anywhere. She's so hard to find. I don't have anything, but she's so adorable. I would be obsessed with her if there was, you know, more stuff that could be obtainable. And even though I love Hello Kitty, I actually think I'm gonna opt to put her in overrated because I flat out agree, like, I think she is. There's better characters and also a lot of the new merchandise. Ugly. I can't lie. I'm not gonna buy it if it's ugly. Next we have Wally Darling from Welcome Home, and oh my gosh. I actually found Welcome Home maybe 2-ish weeks before it like blew up. There was a YouTube video I watched like exploring the website and like Easter eggs. Had around maybe 30k-ish views, give or take. Right as it blew up, I noticed that everyone was focused on Wally, though. Like, I mean, I love him. He's a silly little guy, as you said. But I feel like, you know, none of the other characters are quite as equally talked about as him, if that makes sense. Come on, where's the love for, I don't know, Barnaby? Look how silly he is, too. Point being, I think they all look cool as fuck. I love this project, and I haven't, like, revisited the site since it got put back up. Which I think was like a week or so ago, so I definitely need to do that. So yeah, I think I'm gonna put Wally Darling in. I love them, but understandable. Next is Amity Blight. Firstly, God, I miss the Owl House so much. And second, I love Amity, but this is definitely true. It's hard because there's a lot of characters I think deserve to have more centered episodes revolving around them and their journeys. I think it's partly because of the circumstances the show ended up in towards the end, but that also can't always be the excuse. I think Amity's a relatable character, especially, you know, with her challenges with her parents and, you know, their expectations upon her really resonated with a lot of people. And then when she had to like come to terms with her sexuality in a way as well, it's hard to connect fully with characters when we don't really get to know their stories and struggles, but that doesn't mean they don't deserve appreciation at the same time. Even the characters that got their cut of the cake have stuff, you know, you didn't know about them revealed. Like, I didn't know Luz was Afro-Latina for half the time I watched this show. I've seen the misconception that everyone thought she was just Mexican. I've actually been meaning to make a video essay about the Owl House, but because of the show's popularity, a lot of people just covered the things I had thoughts on, and, you know, probably better than I could anyways. So I ultimately just gave up on it. And while we're talking about Amity, I also really wish she had her father's nose. Literally all the girls in this show have the same nose shape. For what? This is hard because I think Amity is definitely overrated in a way, but she definitely serves her purpose in this show. I think Amity is right on the brink of they serve their purpose and I love them but understandable. I'm not putting her in there to actually say that she's not overrated. I just don't know if overrated is the word I'd use for this. Like, I just think there's an overshadowing problem in this show. Like, a lot of characters got more focus on their story and lines in what? A lot of characters got more of the cake than others in this show, and because it ended, you know, the ending circumstances did not help. I feel like a lot of fans tend to ignore all the flaws this show has. Like, you can still appreciate a show while also being like, I wish this was done better. And I feel like the fans don't do that. I also put Amity's like future self grown up design as the picture because I'm obsessed with it. It's so cute. Moving on, we have Eric Cartman. if Eric Cartman is your favorite South Park character, I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of scared of you. He's like the type of character where I hate him, he's so horrible, and then it's just like so horrible that it's so funny. Like, you can't help but laugh. Immediately, I think I'm gonna put him in You Just Hate Him. He's like on the brink of You Just Hate Him and they serve their purpose. He serves his purpose. You probably just don't like him. I think that's the tension with his character. He's by far the, you know, I don't even need to say it. His crime list should say enough, okay?
He's fed someone their own parents in a stew.
But staying on topic, we also have Kenny from South Park, which, okay, you're probably right, but I'm definitely guilty of this, okay, I'm sorry. I don't know. I love him. He's a silly little guy, okay? In all seriousness, I've seen some crazy headcanons, like, of South Park characters, especially Kenny, because he's, like, so popular. And I'm sorry to break it to you, but he's the absolute straightest character of this whole cast, and you cannot convince me otherwise. I almost wanted to put Kenny in They Serve Their Purpose, but I think I'm gonna put him in I Love Them But Understandable, because there are definitely some people who, they like Kenny, but I feel like they don't watch the show or something. Like, there's a disconnect. But yeah, I'm gonna put Kenny in I Love Them But Understandable. I just think he's a very appealing character, and there's a lot of mystery to his character at first because, like, you know, you don't see his whole face because he's wearing his parka, and you can barely hear him, so it's like, huh, what's going on here? Next we have Pikachu. Now, these are the hot takes I like to see. I'm not very versed in Pokemon. I've watched the show growing up, and that was about it. I feel like everyone likes Pikachu. I mean, he's cute, he's the mascot, Ash's Pokemon, how can you not? But I never really thought about it like this. I think the reason for choosing a cute, timeless character like Pikachu has to do with the fact that the series is aimed at children, plus he could appeal to both boys and girls, which I think is fair. Although, I think the previous mascot they had before they changed it to Pikachu would have done the same thing, but they got rid of it because it was pink. And apparently, you know,
gender roles.
But I also get it at the same time. There's a lot more unique Pokemon designs, and I can imagine as a Pokemon fan, it probably gets a little, I don't know, infuriating to see such a simple character be so popular. But let me know your opinions down below. I'm curious. I also had no idea he was mid-evolution, which is also kind of weird. That doesn't really make... I don't know the specifics on how all that works though. I think ultimately I'm going to take the safe route and put Pikachu in They Serve Their Purpose, but I definitely could see how he would be overrated because, I mean, quite literally the mascot. Moving on, we have Caillou. Oh my gosh, every clip I've seen of Caillou, like as I've gotten older, is just him being an absolute menace. Like, does this kid like have an ounce of understanding or like kindness in his body? Also, it's kind of funny that you mentioned the like Go Animate thing, because a while ago I made this short about how I discovered the like Be Cool Scooby-Doo reboot from 2015 and how the animation like style looks exactly like that. So like I thought for the longest time it was just another parody because of that. I used to hear people be like, you know, a lot of parents complained about Caillou or don't like Caillou or won't let their kids watch Caillou. And I was like kind of confused because, I mean, I'm the kid who's obviously seen Caillou, but now I get it. I partly feel like I get why parents think this show wouldn't be good for their children. Like, nobody wants their child acting like that kid. Are you kidding? But to be fair, I wouldn't really think Caillou is overrated. I think I'm just gonna put it in You Just Hate Them because Caillou is such an unlikable little brat. Next is Draco Malfoy. I mean, wow, I guess this video is gonna be full of my hot takes. I don't get the hype of Harry Potter. I've seen some of the movies when I was little, but it was never really like my thing. And I've also been compared to Luna Lovegood a lot though. Anyway, when 2020 came along and it seemed like everyone suddenly had this obsession with Draco Malfoy, I can't. I'm a lesbian, but like, I don't know. I guess he does not do it for me, guys. Also, you know, have you ever seen those actors where they've had like one popular role in like a franchise or a movie and then it's all they talk about like as they've gotten older? Well, that is Tom Felton for you, and that man needs to move on. I saw this tweet like the other week and I was absolutely losing my mind over it. It was when it was Danielle Radcliffe's birthday and it said Tom Felton is gonna bake a cake and post it on his Instagram with the caption, Happy birthday, Potter. I don't even know like the significance of this character to the franchise or anything about Tom Felton like outside of that role, but I know he would do that shit. So yeah, absolutely overrated. He gives me the ick of all time. I can't stand this man. Next we have SpongeBob. I'm kind of conflicted on this one because is he annoying? Yeah, I mean at times, but like what would the show be without SpongeBob? At the end of the day, he's the core of this show, and I feel like the core of the Bikini Bottom, like, it wouldn't be the same without him and his antics. SpongeBob is just such a classic to me that I will always remember it fondly, and for that, I just choose to look past it. I think I'm gonna put him in You Just Hate Them because I don't really think he's overrated. I think he's just the main character, which makes him popular by default. And this show is definitely not overrated. I also think a lot of people who think SpongeBob is annoying tend to be the parents who the show isn't even made for, which kind of annoys me more than SpongeBob himself. Maybe it is the nostalgia, man, but I don't know. I just don't have the heart to be a hater on this one. But what I will say is I am scared of the new SpongeBob. I saw this clip a while back of SpongeBob who still doesn't have his boating license, and let's just say it made my skin literally crawl.
Almost anyone.
Nice license. Can I touch it? Well, looks like you have an opening in your schedule, Mrs. Puff.
Oh, also speaking of Mrs. Puff, I love the theories about how SpongeBob like ruined her life and made her lose like all her sanity. I mean, now that you cannot change my mind about. Next we have Bibble from Fairytopia. Now don't get mad at me, but I actually have like zero memory of most of the Barbie movies like I watched growing up. I feel like that's pretty fair because I was like 5. Well, that is except that there's a monkey named Tallulah and no one has ever had my name in any media, so like I was so excited. That and Bibble's amazing singing from this movie. I'm gonna put Bibble in You Just Hate Them because that's the vibe I get from this. But I will say one thing, if I was Alina, Bibble would stress me out like beyond. Bibble, no! And oh my god, Dizzle is so much scarier. Okay, that's not what this video is about. But speaking of Barbie, we also have Greta Gerwig's Ken, which firstly I want to say I am 100% in support and stand with the SAG-AFTRA strike. With that in mind, I have a lot of thoughts on Ken, and the main one is that he seems to be like the top character that's talked about the absolute most out of anyone in this movie. Now, I think that Ryan Gosling absolutely killed it with this role and did amazing. I mean, he made me laugh like more times than I can count. However, it did kind of anger me that America and like Margot's performances weren't being talked about as much. I mean, Margot is literally the main character. Again, Ryan Gosling did great, but considering the message of this movie and a man still being the big standout to people, it just does not, it left a bad taste in my mouth. So yeah, I would have to say, considering the overall bearing message of this movie, I think it's pretty fair to consider him overrated, but I am gonna put him in love them but overrated. Next we have Deku, which, before I even speak, do not take this seriously, take maybe this with a grain of salt. I could never understand the appeal of My Hero Academia. Like, I remember when my friends insisted on me watching it, like, I needed to watch it right then and now. It was gonna change, like, my entire life, but I could barely get into maybe the first 3 episodes at best. So for that alone, I'm gonna take your word for it and absolutely agree. Also, Kokichi dislikers, I see you, okay? I hear you. The only anime I've ever watched fully, in fact, is Danganronpa. And I'm not ashamed, okay? When I was in the 8th grade, I could only get through season 1 though, because finding somewhere to watch the second one was just ridiculously hard for some reason. So I eventually just like gave up. I think I only watched like the first 2 episodes and that was it of that season. I feel like I always see the season 2 characters talked about more than the season 1 characters. So I'm very interested. Like, is that season better than the first one? Because I really enjoyed the first season. Another one is Pearl from Steven Universe, which I only ever watched the original Steven Universe. I didn't know there was actually 2 separate shows. It was like the first 2 seasons at most, I think. I don't know how many seasons the original had. I think there was like 4. So obviously I won't speak too much, but I just feel like Pearl gets like more hate than love online. So how is she overrated? I also feel like Pearl is a very complicated character that I eventually want to like look more into, because obviously I haven't watched the show, finished the show. I don't really plan on finishing the show. I don't know, it's just not something on my agenda. But I want to know like the storyline there that I missed. Like, I'm very interested because I feel like it's a very like touchy subject. Like, I see it talked about a lot. I don't know how a character who's so controversial amongst a fan base could be considered overrated. I kid you not, all I see online is people like shitting on her. And finally, we're at the section of the video most of you are probably waiting for: total drama characters. The fandom that got the most submissions on this list by far was Total Drama, and I wasn't able to include them all because obviously I wanted a variety of characters. But we'll start with characters from the new season and move into more of the OG characters. Our first character is Nichelle. I've already discussed Nichelle like more in depth during my Total Drama 2023 review where I ranked all the characters, so if you are interested in more of my opinions on that season, you can go there. I think she got nowhere near enough screen time for me to consider her a top tier character, though I did rank her at A in that video, mostly because, I mean, I have high hopes for her as a character in the future seasons, honestly. The state that she left us in, that was just humiliating for her. This character has had, honestly, huge amount of hype around her since the contestants were revealed to us, and I can totally understand why. I mean, this show suffered with its lack of diversity for years, and do I even have to say it? There was no reason Lashana needed to be kicked off island like that. So I'm gonna put her in, she serves her purpose. You know, let her cook, come on. And then we have Julia. I automatically agree with this. This is the exact take I had in my review. I still included her in this video because, you know, in that video I was trying to be optimistic and I said, but I could take this back. But I'm here to reveal, update, definitely do not. Next is Dawn, which I got quite a lot. I was a little shocked at this one, not gonna lie. I feel like the universal love for Dawn comes from the fact that she was just wronged so badly by Scott. This character truly deserved to be explored a lot more, if you know what I mean. Very similar to what I said about Nichelle, but Dawn has just kind of stood out to me over the years. Like, I feel like she's very unique personality-wise compared to, you know, a lot of the other characters we had seen previously, and kind of just wasted potential with how short her stay was in the game. I really liked the whole reading people's auras thing, and like how this allowed for us to get some more depth on our other characters competing.
Maybe I'll even make some new friends. Yes, that would be good considering you were an only child and all. What? Who told you that? Your soul reads like an open book. You had such a lonely childhood. It must have been difficult. Will you keep it down? If I don't get my beauty sleep, I'll lose it. Yes, because your need for fame is really a depressed cry for love. Who told you that? My therapist? I see people's auras, and it looks like someone threw up on yours.
So maybe she is a tad bit overrated, but I'm gonna be a bit of a Dawn apologist today. And I think, you know, I just think the right intention is there with the hype around her. She was simply an underutilized character, and I also don't see how she could be that annoying. Like, it's not like she really does a lot anyway. Yeah, it might come off as a shocker to a lot of you, but I absolutely disagree. Speaking of disagree, next we have Owen, and this is a really hot take maybe, but people are just way too overcritical and harsh on Owen. Now, I wholeheartedly agree that the food jokes and fart humor is just absolutely repulsive. That's not what I mean by too harsh. I actually recently rewatched that episode that this person's talking about in their submission, and my god, it was such a hard watch. Is Owen my favorite character? No. But my point is, I think that he's remembered so fondly, like amongst fans and writers, because he's really the only character consistently having a good time. And that makes him more captivating to the viewer. And it's a great contrast from the 98% of the contestants dreading every minute of their time on the show, you know? I think what makes his character annoying is the fact he's written as a gag character. Like, characters like that can only be used so much before it brings annoyance to people. Most of the super popular characters people think are overrated, like Duncan or Heather, at least contribute to the drama and the plot of the show. So yes, the downside of his enthusiasm can be he's manipulated easy.
But somebody has to.
I mean, I think that's why it's so interesting when Owen becomes Chris's mole and starts sabotaging the game, because he's starting to have an impact on our story. Although I think this would have made more sense at the beginning of action versus so late into the season, especially if we consider the fact that he's already won a season, but it's an interesting turn of events for him as a character still. Very similar to when DJ had an alliance with Chef that very same season, and how it was just a shock to everyone. So if you hate Owen for being the stereotype gag character he is, that's honestly valid. But this is just my take on his overall character arc. I also loved him and Noah's friendship in World Tour, and I'm really happy that he was brought back for Redonkulous Race. I think it fit perfectly for them, and he's definitely more tolerable in that show as well, versus something like Island. I think I'm gonna probably put him in You Just Hate Him, because it's not like he is a fandom favorite or anything. Next we have Cody. If anyone can answer this question for me genuinely, why does Cody have fans? I've tried to wrap my mind around it, but I just can't. Okay, for starters, he's insanely creepy to Gwen in Island, persistently hitting on her and having the audacity to even ask for her bra, which, let's not forget, he reveals he actually kept in the very first Aftermath.
I'm definitely Team Gwen. She's hot, and I have her bra.
I think people tend to overlook his flaws because he was the victim of the very same treatment, but, you know, far worse with the whole Sierra situation. I've said it before, there's people in my own comments who will justify Sierra's harassment and assault of Cody just because of his treatment of Gwen. But outside of all of this, you may ask, he is just annoying. There is nothing about his character that has ever interested me, but that will just never justify how Sierra treated him during World Tour. So absolutely, he is incredibly overrated. I do not understand the hype whatsoever. Next is Gwen, and honestly, I really like Gwen. In fact, I always have. I think the main reason people hate Gwen so much is how the show itself has just kind of villainized her from the beginning. Starting off in Island, Heather immediately targets Gwen, kissing her boyfriend and even reading her diary on national television. Then in action, the Gwent breakup happens and Jeff takes this opportunity to target her on the Aftermath show for ratings. And this is where the Gwunkin buildup starts in a way. Then in World Tour, well, we all know what happens in World Tour. Gwen seems to get most of the blame for the love triangle in the fandom, I've noticed. And I'm sorry to break it to you, but they all had a role in that drama and nobody is innocent, I fear. Actually, Gwen from the beginning at least showed remorse for all that and went on to try to fix things with Courtney and All Stars. But you know who you don't see doing that? Duncan. You don't see Duncan ever having remorse, do you? So yeah, I'm not going to get into all of this right now because I'm working on a more in-depth script for a video all about it. However, I do think the writers just really did her so dirty, and I think the Gwen hate train is just kind of tiring. Like, I think we get it. So hot take, I disagree. This next one might be my most controversial take of this video. We have Courtney. As a kid, being the Gwen enjoyer that I was, I don't remember hating Courtney, but I definitely overlooked her. However, as I got older and rewatched the show, I've grown to consider her my favorite character, and I will tell you exactly why. Well, the show is called Total Drama, and Courtney definitely brings it wherever she goes, constantly, keeping the show entertaining and interesting in the process. She simply plays the game the way it's meant to be played, which doesn't always mean being nice, and had great strategy while doing it. But the thing that really stands out to me is just her versatility. Like, she's by far one of the most versatile characters in terms of roles. I feel like she could be the antagonist, the anti-hero, the protagonist, the supporting character, etc., and she could still make it work. I think she's a relatable character too to a lot of people that they can resonate with. For example, she's very success oriented, specifically when it comes to her self-worth and her accomplishments. She is also really uptight about rules and order, because of this. These traits are often over-exaggerated for the sake of a more interesting and entertaining character, and it definitely works. She also kind of reminds me of Chris in a way, because with every season she spirals more and more into insanity as her desperation ultimately jumps out since she hasn't actually won a season. Which is kind of crazy when you think about it, like love her or hate her. All Stars really should have been hers, but unfortunately it serves as a clear example of how dirty these writers have just done her. So maybe it's fair that a lot of people don't like her because, you know, it's probably what the writers are going for at this point. Writing an episode like Sunday Muddy Sunday. But I have to stick to my truth here, and I absolutely wholeheartedly disagree. And lastly, we have the man himself, Duncan. This was literally like the first thing that was, I got Duncan twice as soon as I posted this form, and I literally laughed out loud. I can honestly agree, at least partially. It's kind of understandable why Duncan initially was an extremely popular character among fans. I feel like with every season he's in After Island, though, I find more of a reason to dislike his character. Majority of this comes from the derailment of his character that was just caused by the love triangle, unfortunately, and the way fans have just kind of brushed over his role in all of that drama. He was an insanely popular character, specifically in the early days in this fandom, and I think that plays a big part in why it was like just brushed over, to the point where nobody really blamed him for the love triangle as much as they did Courtney or Gwen. A lot of people don't like him because he literally has so much screen time, and I think the lowest he's ever placed was like 8th place. I could say more. I kind of don't want to. I think that that's self-explanatory enough. And again, I'm working on a video focused on the exact drama, so stay tuned for that. I don't want to like give it all away. But that was today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and let me know your opinions on any of these characters on this tier list. I'm very curious, especially the ones where maybe I'm not as versed in the show, but I still wanted to include some of them and have a variety of characters on this very list. And I will see you guys in my very next video.